From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the Noon News. I'm Kelsey Merison in for Diane. The cold snap isn't over yet. We'll check in with Miller for the very latest. But first, our top story. Holiday travelers are facing hundreds of delays and cancellations at airports today. In Billings, an aircraft even froze and broke apart, causing trouble on the runway. But luckily, everyone is safe. MTN's Alina Howder reports.
If you're one of the many walking through these doors to travel during this holiday season, pack your patience. These negative double-digit temperatures are causing delays across the nation, and Billings Logan International Airport is no exception.
Flying can be stressful in and of itself, but add cold weather and a frigid wind chill, and you've got even more problems to deal with.
The wind blowing causes us to have to be out there making sure the runway's clear. Coldness causes mechanical things to kind of fall apart.
That happened Wednesday night at Billings Logan. A life flight was landing at the airport and had trouble with its landing gear.
When it came down, was pretty much the wheels were frozen, and so it blew a tire, so we had to close the runway down for about an hour while we tried to get it off. So the equipment we used to get it off broke because it was cold.
Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the cold has been merciless.
I stepped outside, and the first breath felt like little needles going into my lungs.
George Morris and Sally Stapler got a rude welcome to Montana when they arrived here from California and Georgia Thursday.
We did have to de-ice when coming in from Salt Lake City, which was fun for our 2-year-old grandson. He loved that.
But Morris and Stapler are thankful that they made it. Nationwide, more than 2,000 flights were canceled Thursday, and more than 6,500 flights were delayed. Chicago and Denver, two of the cities currently housing thousands of stranded passengers, including this couple from Montana.
Can't rent a car to go back to Bozeman. There's no flights back to Bozeman.
If you're going east, you're going to have a lot of patience because it might take you a minute to get there.
Billings Logan has been seeing between 1,500 and 1,600 travelers a day this week. Fortunately, the weather is expected to improve by Christmas Eve, and those who made it are just happy to be home.
With the cold, the de-icing process, landing was a little fun. We had a nice little slide into the airport.
In Billings, Alina Howder, MTN News.
Happy Friday, everybody, and TGIF boom as we cruise into the long Christmas weekend. Warming trend beginning today. We're going to see a lot of the state down in northern parts of Wyoming as well, trying to finally get back above zero. Eastern side of Montana and some northern parts of Wyoming still going to be in the negative column. Look at that, -7 for Miles City for the high today. 3 below in Jordan, 10 below in Glasgow, 12 below in Glendive. Even up in North Dakota, 15 below in Wilson. But the rest of us, single digits to teens, maybe even some 20s today for highs. Very, very nice. That Arctic air that's been sitting on top of the area, this will start to loosen its grip, but we still possibly could see some snow. We'll take a look at that with the main forecast coming up.
January 15th, 1972, here in the town of Loma in Choteau County, a weather station recorded a temperature rise of 103 degrees, going from 54 below to 49 above in 24 hours and setting a nationwide record. Montana holds several of the largest temperature swings on record, but what actually causes the large temperature variability seen in central Montana this time of year? On Wednesday, Great Falls Airport recorded its coldest day since December 21st, 1990. That same air mass is bringing drastic temperature drops to areas throughout the nation within hours and even minutes. In Casper, Wyoming, the temperature fell nearly 70 degrees in less than 24 hours on Wednesday evening. However, Montana still maintains several nationwide and world records for short-duration extreme temperature changes. On Christmas Eve in 1924, Fairfield's temperature fell 84 degrees in just 12 hours. January 11th, 1980, in Great Falls, the temperature rose 47 degrees in 7 minutes. As seen, these remarkable temperature swings tend to occur in late December and early January when there is no shortage of Arctic air across the Canadian prairies to the north. Oftentimes, a shift in the jet stream will orient winds to the southwesterly direction, otherwise known as the Chinook winds. As air descends the Rockies, it accelerates and compresses. As that air is compressed, it warms about 5.5 degrees every 1,000 feet of descent, giving central Montanans reprieve from winter's icy grip. This is generally not the case near and west of the Continental Divide. Cold air is extremely dense, and higher terrain makes for difficulty moving it. Once it does reach the valleys in western Montana, it often gets stuck and creates inversions for days, even weeks on end. Fortunately, on this side of the divide, the Chinook will assist in warming several central Montana communities over 80 degrees between Thursday morning and Saturday. Reporting in Great Falls, Eric Johnson, MTN News.
Yesterday, more than 6,000 people were without power in northwest Montana, according to Flathead Electric. That number dropped all day as crews worked to restore it. Even so, they're asking the public not to use any unnecessary electricity. They suggest turning the thermostat down by 10 degrees or more and unplugging unneeded electrical equipment, like Christmas lights. The main problem is that Flathead Electric's provider, Bonneville Power Administration, shut down one of their main delivery points. That resulted in power outages across the Lake Blaine, Mini Lakes, and Echo Lake areas. Despite power being restored throughout the day, it's still a good idea to have an emergency plan in place.
If you don't have a secondary heat source, I think the biggest thing here is to make a plan with a friend, a neighbor, to go to their house if they have a secondary heat source such as a wood stove.
Flathead Emergency Services has established warming shelters for anyone who needs a place to go. The cold weather problem is causing problems in Ennis, where ice jams have forced local officials to close a park and fishing access. These are images from the Ennis Police Department's Facebook page. Ice jams are caused when large chunks of ice pile up and water is forced over the shore. Ennis police say parts of Lions Park are closed due to flooding of the Madison River. Police also warn of blowing snow covering thin ice, which is another concern. And that's a look at some of the day's top stories.
On Thursday, a special committee of the Montana legislature voted on party lines to advance a report accusing the state judicial branch of improperly mishandling public records and expressing opinions on proposed bills that could come before the court. It's just the latest step in a long-running dispute between Republican legislative leaders and state judges. Republicans on the committee released a draft report last week in which they criticized judges, particularly Montana Supreme Court Chief Justice Mike McGrath, for their handling of polls about proposed legislation and the many legal cases that arose after GOP lawmakers used subpoena power to seek emails on that subject from the judicial branch. It recommends new rules on when judges must recuse themselves from cases and how state government emails are preserved.
I think the overall goal here was to make sure that we have a fair and impartial justice system in Montana. I think that's important to everyone in Montana.
Democrats on the committee said their input wasn't included in the report, and they offered their own minority report. They called the majority's conclusions outrageous and an attack on the independence of the judiciary.
I think it was an unprecedented political action to go after the Montana Constitution and the judiciary. Those are the pillars of democracy in our country.
McGrath and an attorney for the state court administrator both issued responses to the draft report, defending their actions and accusing the majority of making libelous claims against them. The committee removed specific language saying the two had lied, but kept accusations that they had misled. Last year, the state Supreme Court ruled that the legislature exceeded its authority when leaders used a subpoena to obtain thousands of judicial branch emails. Attorney General Austin Knudsen challenged that ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court, which declined to intervene. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
It's pretty cold out there. Actually, right now, it's -8 degrees, Miller. It's actually the coldest weather I've ever experienced in my life. So please tell me we have some good news coming up.
We do. Santa's going to be kind to us this year as we are into a warming trend. Some of us getting into the 40s for Christmas Day. We'll take a look coming up.
Plus, frozen bubbles and boiling water in freezing temperatures. Some fun science experiment ideas up next.